How to Dispose of Choosy Beggars, the Voltrex edition. When boyfriend and I first moved away from Armpit to a scrack around 1996 or so, we moved into an apartment building that was really a huge house broken up into 5 or 6 apartments. A few days after moving into the top apartment, we discovered that boyfriend actually kind of knew the couple on the ground floor. As it turned out, boyfriend had graduated with the girl, a blonde with a crunchy by Miyazuma grams 80 sperm. Now, we didn't realize this at first, but she was a complete and total Brittany, and he was the male counterpart. At first, they seemed nice enough. We hung out a bit, and went out a few times to the clubs. I even helped Brittany get on at the place where I worked, telemarketing, but almost twice what minimum wage was at the time. It wasn't until we had lived there for a couple of months that we found out rather by happenstance that the couple had a rather extensive opioid habit. I was at work one evening and I had a terrible headache. Brittany came to my desk at break time. We usually went to eat together and asked me what was wrong. I told her I had a headache and asked her if she had any Tylenol. Well, no, but she had a painkiller. Turns out that she was talking about hydrocodone and I politely declined it. Over the next few days she offered me a painkiller for everything from a tummy ache to being in a bad mood. That's when I started to catch on. As it turns out, Brittany and Brian's lives revolved around their pill problems. It was all they talked about. We didn't want to make enemies of people that we literally lived on top of, so we subtly started pulling back from the friendship. Eventually Brittany got fired from the job, and that's when the choosy beggaring began. They started out asking to borrow $20. We did it, and they paid us back. No problem. Next thing that happened is that they wanted to share their cable account. Since we were all in the same building we could run a line and no one would know. Their idea was that we take turns paying each month. Of course, we went first. I did not like this at all, but figured that if it went pear-shaped, we would have a legitimate excuse to get rid of them. The third thing that happened was that Brittany came to our door in tears. She said that Brian was downstairs, crying. She said that they had no food in the house, and that Brian's children were with them for the weekend and they were hungry. We weren't exactly domesticated then, so we had no food to give them. Boyfriend and I are soft-hearted, and we were kind of naive back then, so we lent them some money for food. I think it was $50 or so. The next day Brittany is back, and she's going on and on about Brian's pill issue. Not hers. No, it was all Brian. Sometime during the conversation, she says that Brian had made her lie to her parents and say they needed food for the children to get money for drugs. Boyfriend and I just looked at each other. We didn't say a word to her, but we were furious. A few days later, our cable was turned off. Since the account was in Brittany and Brian's name, we went down to their apartment to find out what was going on. They tried to cover it up at first by making excuses and hemming and hawing around, but it didn't take long to figure out that the bill hadn't been paid in over 2 months. We had given them money for the cable bill that month, but they spent it on something else. Gee, I wonder what. We ended up opening up our own account and they actually had the nerve to ask us to share with them. That's a nope from me, dog. They got very pushy about the issue and a few words were exchanged. It wasn't a pleasant conversation, but we finally had the excuse we needed to cut them off. The problem was that they would not leave us alone. They badmouthed us to other people in the building. They stole things from our cars. They called in noise complaints on us and sent the police to beat on our doors, waking us up at 2 and 3 am. There were a few other things too, but that was the final straw. I was just fed up. One night while watching TV a commercial for Voltrex came on, and I got an idea. As it turns out, the first few doses of the anti-herpes medication was free. All we needed was a name and an address to have free information and a voucher for free samples sent to our home. We dialed the number and sat back and waited. Now, I know the subscribing people to junk mail or dirty magazines is kind of a cliche, and we didn't really expect anything to come of it. What we had hoped for at most was a blow up of some sort. We figured that, if we were lucky, there would be a fight and some cheating accusations. Maybe if fortune really smiled upon us they would even break up. What we got was so much more. It was, in fact, glorious. About 10 days after we made the call, a huge ruckus outside got our attention. Brittany was in a rage. She was in the yard, screaming at Brian, calling him every name in the book. Brian was standing there haplessly watching as she threw his belongings into the yard. Clothes were everywhere. A TV and a lamp smashed on the sidewalk. Brittany sat in the middle of it like a blonde banshee in booty shorts, cursing and screaming at the top of her lungs. We were extremely gratified when she asked which of his feckin' hoss gave it to him. Eventually Brian lost patience and the two started brawling in the middle of the street. Beer bottles and gauntlets were thrown. A weave was snatched off. It was a scene fit for the Jerry Springer Show. Eventually the police showed up, and Brittany and Brian were driven off in the city's free black and white cab service. They were taken to spend the night in the city's free hotel accommodations, aka the county jail. Apparently when the police intervened, the couple was found to be in possession of illegal prescription drugs, and a night in jail turned into multiple nights in jail. Imagine that. They never returned to the building and we never saw or heard from them again. For all I know, they're still in jail. Edit. I'm not sure I want to disclose the name of my hometown and current town. Both places are moderately famous, the subject of a major motion picture each, so it would probably be easy for people from back home to identify me. Both towns suck, which is why I chose Armpit and Scrack as the town names. The place where I'm from is very small and sucks, just because of small town politics and such. The place where I live now, although relatively small, has the highest per capita drug odd rate in the US, so, yeah. It used to be a nice place, but now it sucks. Edit. Funny how the stories that I think won't go over as well blow up, and the ones I think are awesome are usually the opposite. I'm really appreciative of all the feedback, both critical and complimentary, I've received from everyone. Edit. I'm overwhelmed by the reception this story has received. Thanks so much to the kind Redditor who awarded gold to this story. That's very kind of you. Not a good idea to hire your girlfriend instead of the shop teacher. This story is about my dad and happened in the mid to late 70s. My dad taught shop in a very tough part of town, think ghetto area with beginnings of gangs. He was highly respected by all of his students because they knew he wouldn't tolerate their BS. Summers were a tough time for our family because teachers do not get paid for summers, so they have to find jobs. One year there was a perfect job at the school that was tailor-made for my dad. The group funding the summer class actually wrote the job description with my dad in mind. The school principal chose to hire his mistress to teach this vocational class instead. The woman had absolutely no clue about the subject matter. She was an English teacher, but she got the job instead. My dad was quite angry, and so was the group funding the job, but hiring was solely the principal's decision. The principal was married to a woman with money and he did not want her to know about his mistress. My dad helped the janitor with a lot of maintenance for the school and was good friends with him. My dad had keys to the entire school because of this. He also had a lot of experience with all sorts of locks, a hobby of his. Dad knew that making friends with the janitor and secretary would help him around the school, and he made a point of doing this at every school. He knew where the combination to open the giant safe in the office was. For some reason the school had been built with a huge old-fashioned safe, think bank safe type, and the principal kept the combination written down inside a desk drawer. Yes, that was an idiot move, but this man was very arrogant and refused to ever change the combination or memorize it. Who would dare to get into his things? My dad never threw things out and often pulled things out of the dumpster if he thought they might be useful. One of the things he rescued from the dumpster was a life-size skeleton that was discarded when a biology teacher left suddenly. The principal was freaked out by it and ordered it tossed because the teacher left. The skeleton was not school property and the principal had no idea that my father had rescued it from the dumpster. The principal gave his mistress very expensive status symbol type things. This included a mink coat, jewelry and expensive trips. Both principal and mistress told their spouses that the trips were to educational conferences. Being friends with the secretary meant he heard all the gossip and knew that the principal kept these items in the big safe in the office so that his wife would not know about them, and neither would the mistress's husband. Being really irate about the job because he had to find something else and because the kids would learn nothing from this job training course, my dad decided to set up revenge. He took the skeleton to the safe and dressed it in the mink coat and fancy jewelry. He put the skeleton on a stand that held it upright inside this big safe. Then he left for the summer. On the last day of the summer course, the principal and his mistress were getting ready to take a week-long trip together. They told their spouses it was for a conference. Then they went to get the coat and jewelry so the mistress would have a chance to wear them. The mistress didn't care that it was summer. She wanted to wear the coat. Yes, this makes no sense, but she was super status conscious and wanted to show it off. She was that kind of person. When the principal opened the safe, he saw the skeleton and the coat and jewelry. He had a panic attack. He had no history of heart trouble that he and mistress thought was a heart attack. They called an ambulance. Mistress went to the hospital wearing the jewelry that she grabbed while waiting for the ambulance. The coat was left on the skeleton in the safe. Wife showed up at the hospital and met the mistress in her jewelry. It was very distinctive and a style the wife had asked her hubby for on several occasions. The wife knew a teacher could never afford it. When principal and mistress left in the ambulance, no one thought to lock the safe. The door was just pushed shut, but it had a big wheel that had to be turned to lock it. Wife went to the school to see what was in her husband's office about the mistress and she saw her dream coat in the safe. The wife never saw the skeleton because the janitor took it out of the safe after the ambulance left. Principal knew he was in a lot of trouble with his wife and the school board. He kept ranting about a skeleton, but it wasn't there, and he was the only one who saw it other than mistress. The school board thought he was delusional and had violated a morality clause in his employment contract. He got divorced and couldn't take any money from his wife because she proved his adultery. The mistress wouldn't talk to him or say anything about the situation because she didn't want to incriminate herself. After the principal was fired, his secretary testified about his mistress and the money spent on her at the divorce proceedings. He literally lost everything including his pension. His wife got it all. The mistress tried to lie to her husband about why she was there and said the jewelry was from a contest for best teacher. Her husband divorced her and got custody of their kids, not common in divorce at that time, because of her infidelity being a bad influence on the kids. She got fired and had to give the jewelry to the principal's wife. The school board did an audit of the school budget. The principal got arrested for fraud and embezzling because he used school money for the coat and for trips that he and mistress took that were supposedly for educational training. My dad thought this was all exactly what the principal and his mistress deserved. He would not have said anything about this matter if they didn't take a really good paying summer job away and they didn't leave a bunch of kids stuck in a class where they would learn nothing because all the teacher could do was tell them to read the book. She couldn't do any of the projects that were part of the course because she was an English teacher and not a shop teacher. To be honest, I think depriving the kids of solid job skills that the class was designed to teach upset him even more than having to find a different summer job. He did enjoy having a different principal the next year. I really hope you guys enjoyed that story. Thanks for watching another Reddit Readings video. May Karens be punished away, and may your revenge be ice cream, sweet and served cold. Like and subscribe to find money today. Binge watch your favorite subreddits from links in the bio. Okay, I'm done now, good day.